Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the Insiders. Tim Fitzgerald, the rest of the crew, Brian Hanley, Cole Carmody, Ryan Gilbert, and our guest today is Jake Stevens from the Cat Attack Show. I thought it was a podcast, but is it like a radio show every Thursday?
Yeah, we kind of double. It's a radio show Thursday nights at 6, 91.9, and then we record it for a podcast as well. Yep.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes better sense. Do you have those Nielsen numbers from the radio show? Are you over like 7 million listeners?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Ballpark. Around 7. We don't get that back weekly. It's monthly, so we'll get a February viewer soon.
Damn cheap K-State.
Hey, I don't
Pay
know.
for the dailies.
Me and Cole's radio show on Wildcat 91.9, that did numbers back in the day.
The night shift, it was the greatest. That was the OG. I will brag a little bit and say, Ryan, we were probably at the forefront of the sports talk at the station and helped to kind of pave the way. You guys have some really good talent at the station right now, but Ryan and I were pioneers banging on the desk in meetings trying to get more sports talk. Absolutely.
I'm glad you guys were. You led the way for sure.
I feel old now.
You just called yourself a pioneer.
Yep.
Well, I know this. Drew has had a significant impact on that department in terms of sports talent, and nobody appreciates it more than myself because this is an area growing within our industry, and to be able to produce people that can basically be multimedia creators is kind of where the future's at. So I'm all in on that. This is the K-State Insiders. We're sponsored by no one because no one loves us. We try to do this every week, but occasionally we have things like a national championship football game that interrupts us. Folks, that was just a week ago. I know it seems like a month ago. I keep coming across Will Howard stuff. I'm like, they're still talking about him. It's a week ago, and I'm the one often doing the talking, so it's confusing. We answer your questions in the chat. So if you are in the comments, which we have none so far, none, zero, drop us topics that you would like to hear us talk about. Give us some suggestions on questions. Give Brian Gilbert crap, all you want. And also, Jake, I need to know before we really get started full-fledged here, are you wearing the boots?
No, the boots aren't on. I threw it, Fitz. I sold the bag. I'm wearing Birks right now. I'm letting Gills live his best life.
Wow.
I screwed the pooch
I don't
on
even
that.
know you anymore. That's very disappointing. Brian Hanley, I want to start with you because I haven't talked to you about this. Your take from Kansas State pretty much dominating from start to finish against West Virginia, winning 73-60 the other evening.
I mean, look, it's not that Kansas State just doesn't have talented guys. And I mean, they do. They have talented basketball players. And when it comes together, these kinds of things that can happen. And, you know, I said it on the Big 12 Insiders today. The game was over at the first TV timeout. It never got closer. It was over. And I mean, you know, you could say, well, they played really well against Baylor for 30 minutes and then it all fell apart, which is true. But this game never got close. Kansas State did what it needed to do. It defended, which I think is the key part, which they really hadn't done that well lately. I mean, I think they have been decent, but they defended. They made a few shots. But look, this is what can happen when you put a collection of guys together that have some talent. You're going to have nights like this that you can win. Now, there's other aspects that have to come together for you to do it consistently. But, you know, I also said this. Maybe they just needed kind of like a shooter. Maybe they needed the ball to go through the basket. You know, maybe they needed to get a win to say, you know what, if we put forth this type of effort for 40 minutes, we can win. Because if we give this type of effort for 35 minutes, we lose. So we have to do it for a full 40 minutes and we can win this game. Now, are they going to be disciplined enough to be able to do that? We'll see. But I think they know that because, look, I get West Virginia. They've had some injuries. They're going through the flu bug right now. I get all of that. But West Virginia's a good basketball team. They are. And K-State dismantled them. I mean, they did. So I don't want to hear that we can't do it. yes, we can, but you got to put forth the effort for an entire 40 minutes, because I'll say this and I'll go let somebody else go. I apologize for going long. Is we don't have a give it to this guy, he can go get us 25 points every single night, or go give it to that guy, he can go get us 20 points whenever he wants to in his sleep. We don't have those kinds of basketball players on our team. So when you don't have that, you got to be collectively, and the effort has to be there every night to be able to get wins in this conference, or just at all.
Great.
And they understand that now. If we do that, you will play better and the chips will fall where they may.
Cole, what are your thoughts on the game?
So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Major League. They made a second movie to Major League 2, very creative. But the manager in that movie, the character's name is Lou Brown. And there's a famous scene where, of course, they're struggling, because that's the point of every single sports movie ever, where he comes in and he says, "Boys, we won a game yesterday. We win one tomorrow, that's 2 in a row. If we win the day after that, it's called a winning streak." Now, K-State has an opportunity to win 2 in a row. I don't know if they call that a winning streak or not, but I look back at the games against Texas Tech. I look back at the game against Baylor, KU, and then obviously West Virginia, and it's like, if that's the team that we see consistently, they're going to win some basketball games. And I was skeptical at the very best after that KU game. Okay, it's easy to play controlled when you start down early so much. Well, then Baylor, they kind of let it slip away. Gilbert, I know you wrote some things over on the website that might, it kind of felt like a gut punch, like where they go from there. And so the fact that they started so hot the very next game, again, the title of this live says Reasons for Hope. It gives you a glimmer of hope, because if that's a basketball team we're going to see, I don't even want to say consistently, 85% of that team is good enough to win games in the Big 12. West Virginia is a tournament team. Guys, they beat Gonzaga, Iowa State, and Kansas. Like, crazy. The same
Arizona
team.
as well.
And Arizona, the same team. It's not like they were missing anybody. Their best player's not playing, but he didn't play in any of those games either. So I give all the credit in the world to those guys on the court, because something changed after the 30-ball loss to Houston. Something changed. I don't know what it was. Maybe they were just tired of getting kicked in the you-know-what. And I was really impressed with their effort.
Jake, your thoughts? I was really impressed with K-State from start to finish. Look, let's be honest, though, Jake, they didn't play a complete game. They were up by 26 and won by 13. They were kicking that can down the road. And luckily the road wasn't long enough for West Virginia to dig out of that hole. But they still need to finish opponents off. But, boy, that was a positive sign for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it there, Fitz. They certainly tailed off at the end there. I think you almost – in these type of basketball games, it's easy to get complacent for little 4-0, 6-0 runs from them, because really with 8 minutes left, you're just trying to get to the end of the game. But I think what you might be seeing here in the last 3-4 games, what K-State's pieced together, and you've seen it in spurts, this was really the first full 40 minutes of it, was the product of what you can do out of the transfer portal when you have to recruit this many transfers, and how long it can take the chemistry for a team to work. Because I mean, you saw it early in the year, stuff just wasn't working. Lineups weren't working. Different players together didn't work. And now it feels like lineups have started to get a little bit more set. The rotations have got more set. Minutes and different guys playing with different people has been more set. And over the last 4 games, there have been spurts in every game, and mainly in this West Virginia game, obviously, that K-State looks like if we would have had this all year, we'd be in a much, much different position than we are now, with a couple more wins in the Big 12, and who knows what the postseason would look like. But I think you're starting to see the product of what happens when you have to have 8, 9, 10 brand new guys on a team, that it's hard to get the chemistry rolling.
Agreed. West Virginia seemed to do it, kind of like how Jerome Tang did it in year one, coming in, but he also brought his son, which brings the culture, I would think, that settles into the locker room. Ron Gilbert, I've asked you that question already this week, so respond to what the fella said.
I like what Big B said about defense. I rewatched the game this afternoon, and the film stud will be up in the morning on GoPowercat for our VIPs. But Fitz gets around to editing my clips I sent him. But Big B mentions the defense. Okay, Kansas State at the 12:02 mark. Didn't really notice this at the time during the game because K-State held a comfortable lead, but from 12:02 to 7:19, Kansas State didn't hit a single field goal. They had a couple free throws. Hawkins, I think, got to the line, and Gasson had an and one. That was the beginning of that drought. But, guys, we don't remember that. That doesn't get brought up because of the defense. Kansas State, if you're able to stop West Virginia, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're having a shooting slump or going through a dry spell offensively. So, 73 points is great, especially against probably a more defensive team, a slower paced team like West Virginia. That's awesome. 5 different scores in double figures is great. But defensively, it was, West Virginia didn't get to 10 points well within that later in the first half. So I was just, when I rewatched the game again, the defensive effort, not just defensive effort, but effort and hustle and energy overall was just as good as it truly had been all season from Kansas State.
I agree with all that. It was impressive defense, and guys, it seemed to me it was the first time this year they've really connected their offense to their defense.
Yeah.
Instead of playing two ends of the court, they were turning good defense into good offense, and vice versa. Scoring and then setting up and having good defense again, and it just kind of all started to just click. And West Virginia couldn't hit some shots. They missed some shots they normally would hit, but that's how basketball goes. And I thought it was impressive. But I also want to bring up this topic. Doug McDaniel has been a much different player as of late, Big B. He's been productive. He's been Jerome Tank said after the game he called upon him to look for his shot a little bit more. Honestly, a statement I didn't think at the start of the season one would ask Doug McDaniel, but I thought that would just come without asking. But he was trying to distribute the ball, trying to create for his teammates, and maybe getting carried away with it. Again, he looked like he relaxed and just played his kind of game, and that's a really positive sign for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to say he's the catalyst to the team, but maybe he is. Maybe the key is to get him rolling, and then everybody can just feed off of that if that needs to be. Because we've said it all along. We said it several times on here. They don't have a leader. They don't have a guy that, you can look towards and say, this is the guy. Well, maybe he can be that guy. I would like to think so. But I think it's key that Tang's showing that kind of confidence in him and saying to him, hey, man, we got to get you going. You have to get going because everybody else will follow your lead if you're the guy. And maybe he hasn't had that conversation before. It'd seem crazy if he hadn't. But maybe he just hadn't. Or maybe he was really reluctant to take that role. Some guys don't like being the leader. Some guys are fine being a star per se, and as much as we could say anybody on this team is a star, but they don't necessarily like the leadership role because there is a difference, a huge difference, to be quite frank with you. And maybe that's just something that he wasn't comfortable with doing. And maybe now he's like, you know what? I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of it going this way. Maybe what coach has been saying, I'm not saying he's been fighting anything coach is saying, but maybe, you know what? I'm going to do this because what we have been doing isn't working. We got to do something else, and let's figure that out. And if me being more aggressive is it, then damn it, I'm going to be more aggressive. And they won a game. Now, as long as you don't come with the 15 turnovers a night or something stupid, I think it's fine. Just keep being aggressive because I think that's the way that K-State wins is up-tempo being aggressive. I think trying to run half-court sets is an absolute nightmare. I don't think they should try to get into that with anybody. Just keep pushing the ball, keep pushing the pace, try to get as many points on the board as they can.
I see the super chats over there. I appreciate it very much. John, we'll get you in here in a second. Byron, I'm going to hold you till we get to some more footballish topics. But Jake, when Doug plays that way, not scoring because he's looking score first, when he keeps a nice balance between involving his teammates and being definitive as a scorer, that's the best version of him. He was really good, and he was really good defensively, something I don't know that he's been particularly known for in his career.
Yeah, I think that jumped off the page to me early in this game was that the first 3 or 4 possessions, Doug played better defense than he had all season, in my opinion. He was pressuring the ball high, He was forcing pretty much any West Virginia ball handler into a lot of trouble. And I think that K-State was able to take that defense and lead it to offense with Doug. I can't remember the minute mark, but I checked halfway through the first half and he had 7 points and 5 assists. I mean, he was affecting almost everything that they did on offense. And I think a lot of it was due to the defense that he was playing. And it just seemed to make everything more cohesive. Not even Doug's play, but the whole team. I mean, just was really impressive to watch. The first 15 minutes or so of Doug McDaniel were the best 15 minutes I think I've seen from him all year.
I would agree. Let's bring up the super chat from our friend John Grove and let Gills and Cole dig into this. Do you guys think Doug's performance reflects the team's effort to play as a cohesive unit? Great to see all 5 players moving, making it easier for Doug to find a driving lane. Gills, thoughts on that?
Yeah, Doug is best suited to kind of be that guy on this team. You look at Coleman Hawkins at Illinois, he was not the guy. He was part of a very successful program there, but he wasn't the superstar, right? He was not like a true role player, but he just wasn't the guy. And Doug McDaniel, his ceiling is as high as anybody on this team. We've seen his low floor at times, but as of late, Doug McDaniel's really been kicking it up. So, Big B kind of nailed it on the head with just the way that the team can go with however well Doug is playing. So yeah, John, it's Doug is, everybody played well, but if you've got one, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right?
Cool. You go, and then I'm going to go back to Gills with something else.
Guys, I saw him smiling, and I that's not even being sarcastic.
I agree.
That was the thing that I immediately noticed. And, Jerome Tang talks all the time about playing with joy and loving on one another. And when you are, what is the record, 8-11, I understand a lot of fans get frustrated with that. But I think it's pretty obvious that they're starting to believe it. And I think that's really what matters, because we can't sit up here and lie to ourselves and say that one game makes up for the losses that they've had, because it doesn't. But to see that those guys played with that energy because of the point guard who Jerome Tang has admittedly said he needs to figure out his relationship with, to me, that says everything. Because if Doug McDaniel can figure it out, then anybody can figure it out. And that's not a shot at Doug. That is simply, if they are getting to Doug McDaniel and they are getting him to buy in to the point where he is passing the ball, he is scoring the ball, he's getting steals off of a guy who's going to be first team all Big 12. He's literally picking the pocket of one of the best point guards and the leading scorer in the Big 12. He's doing that. And you see what he's doing. If he's doing that, everybody else needs to buy in and follow his lead. And so I think it goes deeper than just the play on the court. But I think it kind of shows that they're starting to figure it out inside of that locker room. And that's just a very underrated part of that game. And ultimately, we're only going to be able to tell. You're only as good as your last game. So if they come out and play bad against Oklahoma State, nobody's going to remember this game. They just have to continue to stack good days, as he would say. And I was really encouraged with Doug's performance.
Gills, did we see Doug buy in? Is that what just happened? I mean, he's him and Jerome Tang have been butting heads. Jerome Tang admitted he was the one to give in and put him in the lineup, see what happened. And his play's gotten better and better. And by God, he looked like a real point guard. He looked like he was trying to be a complete teammate for the first time. And I don't mean that as an insult, but I think it is. I don't think he was showing much love for being where he's at and having the opportunity he was, and now he is. And as much as people want to blame Jerome Tang, I think, again, that goes back to him being willing to be humble and give in on that.
Yeah, was that buy-in there early in the year? I'm sure Jerome Tang would say no, right? I don't know if he said that word for word, but it was pretty clear with his comments, right? So, you mentioned it, Jerome Tang, you said gave in or caved in, right? Doug wants to start. Doug wants to play. Doug wants to be that guy. It goes back to what I just said about he's better suited to kind of be that dude over Coleman. And that's not a knock on Coleman, but that's what Doug, his ceiling is so high, like I said. And so you give a guy what he wants, and, it's tough because you want your guys to work hard in practice and do all the right things. But sometimes you just gotta, Jerome Tang mentioned his assistants said, I think it was a couple of assistants were like, hey, like, Doug is, he's not getting what he wants. Now, is everything off the court, putting in all that work there? Maybe not. I don't know. But, Doug got what he wanted. For right or wrong, it's worked out for Jerome Tang to Fitz, like you said, I guess cave in a little bit and put him in that starting five. It worked out.
Brian Hanley, I've got a question for you as a former athlete, both playing college basketball and football, that I think has changed with the generations. When I was an athlete, and certainly you, we tried to read our coaches. We tried to figure out, we didn't want to make them mad. We wanted to figure out what's the rules of the road here. What are the nuances, although I didn't use that word when I was young, of getting along with this coach and being in favor with him. I feel like this generation is, I don't give a shit. I'm going to do my things my way. We're just going to butt heads in. I just feel like the cultures are having to adjust to each other now. And I'm not saying this generation's wrong. I had a lot of that in me, but we did make an effort to figure out, what's this coach want? What are the buttons he doesn't want pushed, like showing up for practice not ready to go? Because I think that's clearly one with Jerome Tang. It is with a lot of coaches, but this one seems to be in particular. It's just changed, Big B.
Yeah, and it's a society thing.
Yeah,
it's not just an athletic thing or anything. It's a society thing. And I laugh, like I don't have kids, but I always laugh about it because
as far as you know,
we grew up so hard as, our parents were so hard on us. Well, then it's now the people that we're talking about, these kids, it's like we're the parents. And so what changed? Like, why was there such a change that our parents were so strict with us? And then all of a sudden we've turned and said, well, we're not going to be as strict or hold it as accountable doing certain things, and it's weird. I always laugh about that. I think it's funny. But you're right. I think it's a society thing. And as far as coaches, no, you didn't want to make coaches mad. And I don't think the kids now are wanting to make them mad. I think it's more of, you're right, Fitz. Yeah, I'm going to do it my way. And it's either going to be this way or not. Now, at some programs, though, you can do that. But at that program, they say, well, we'll just sit you down and that's it. And we'll play somebody else. And we'll let the chips fall where they may. And when the transfer portal comes around, thank you for your services. Goodbye. But at some programs, maybe you can't do that. But I think it's going to get to that point with a lot of different places, because for the simple fact that it's just what you said. Look, if every year we're going to lose 5 to 7 guys anyway, I don't have time to have to deal with, okay, I'm bringing you in. Oh, you got an attitude problem, yada, yada, yada. No, I don't have time to deal with that. This is the way it has to be. Let people understand that up front. It'll get back. Things, go in cycles, but I think you hit it on the head, Fitz. It's a society change. Again, I'm not saying that they're wrong either. I'm not saying anything about that as far as wrong, but it is different, and coaches are having to adjust. But that doesn't mean that coaches are just letting players run all over them either. It just means they can see things from a player's point of view and say, hey, yes, I get it. I understand that. However, in the grand scheme of things, if you do it like this, we can work in what you're wanting to do within the realm of what we're trying to get accomplished as a basketball team. But if you just want to do it by yourself and do it your way without any regard for anybody else, that isn't going to work. And the best coaches are able to get that message across quickly, and sometimes the players are just hard-headed, and you just got to sit them down and you say, look, I'm not a big fan of Bobby Knight, but the man was right. First of all, he could coach his ass off coaching basketball. But secondly, he said one thing that I'll remember for the rest of my life: the bench is the best motivator. Now, it was a different time. I get it. But the bench was the best motivator. You sit somebody's butt on the bench for long enough, they will conform, or they just will sit there. And again, it's a slippery slope, but you can still do it. You can.
Fitz, before we move on,
you
were talking about that, and I absolutely love everything that you guys have said. It's more so, I think, especially in today's era of college athletics, we've created this. I say we because, as members of the media, like we cover the transfer portal. We report these, report numbers are getting reported through NIL, and it's just part of the game, right? And so we've created this environment. More specifically, the NCAA has created this environment to where it is less of what can I as a player do for you as a coach, and more of what can you as a coach do for me. And I think that that's part of the reason why it took K-State so long to gel, is because, I want to get to the next level. What are you going to do to help me get to the next level, as opposed to what can I do for you to help us win? And I'm not saying that there were those problems that were going on. I have no idea. It wasn't a practice. But I think if there was any of that, especially with Doug McDaniel, that has switched. At least it's appeared to switch in the last few games.
I feel like I brought in an expert panel for this topic. And we got Gilbert, thank you. Gilbert, who covers his team, the former college athlete, the high school teacher, and Jake. Jake, this is your generation. What the hell is wrong with you guys?
A lot is the short answer. A lot. But no, Brian said something I found super interesting, because I grew up in Indiana. I'm probably Bobby Knight's biggest fan under the age of 25. I don't know how many true Bobby Knight fans are left out there. But you talk about the bench being the biggest motivator. And I completely agree with that up until a few years ago, because I think one thing that's interesting now is with the way that NIL works, if you give a kid $500,000 to come play for your school, and he's got an attitude problem and he doesn't want to play and he doesn't want to conform to how you coach him, he can make $500,000 and sit on the bench and be maybe happy doing it, depending on how much he wants to compete. And I think that you were talking about there being a really slippery slope there. I think that might be the slippery slope and a generational issue that kind of coincides with that theory, because if you give a kid that much money, even $100,000, whatever it may be, I don't know who's making what. But if you give a kid money and he's had success somewhere else and he's got game tape already somewhere else that he feels strong enough, he can just go to your school for a year, make the money that he wants, and leave. If that's truly what he wants to do. And I think that's certainly a problem with my generation, is that nobody wants to be coachable. Nobody wants to conform to what the team wants to do. Well, not nobody. There are guys that still do it, but it's an interesting. I think the NIL aspect of all of that makes it super, super interesting. And I don't think I could handle it as a coach. I don't know. It's tough to do. It's really hard to do.
Well, and I feel like it's going to weed out some of the more old school traditional coaches. I think we've already seen that. Guys are like, this is not why I coach college basketball. I mean, I've got players making more money than my coaches. I'm just out on this. So I see that happening. This is the K-State Insiders. We do this every week when I want to. How's that for a commitment, Cole? Was that a good commitment? Great. Whenever I feel like it, we'll do it every week. And we are back this week after I watched Will Howard play a great football game last week. And that brings us to our next super chat. Byron, I hope you're still around because you were very patient. What were the K-State football coaches thinking while watching Will win a national championship? Cole, you take first crack on this. What do you think they were thinking?
I think they're happy for him. I think that. I mean, considering all the outpouring support that Will Howard received on social media from, Brian Anderson was tweeting at him, Joe Hall was tweeting at him, other members of the K-State staff were retweeting stuff. So, yeah, I know he talked about it in a press conference that Chris Kleiman had reached out to him. I don't think there's any animosity. I don't think there's any, we should have kept him. There's none of that. And I think they're just genuinely happy for Will based on his story. There was some absolute garbage stories that were put out by outlets that won't be named on this podcast that talked about how Kansas State dumped Will Howard. And it's obviously those people don't pay attention to the landscape of college football. Any person who covers this sport, and so many people who do cover this sport, have gone out of their way to defend Kansas State and Avery Johnson and Will Howard in the whole situation. But to answer Byron's question, I think they were genuinely happy for him because he grew so much as a player in his time.
Yeah. Well, Byron, you asked this question. I actually asked Chris Kleiman about it when I ran into him. at a basketball game. And he was so proud of the way Will was playing in the postseason. I mean, the kid turned into Tom Brady of college football. He was a Superman in the postseason. During the regular season, he went through some of the Will struggles. Was he completing more passes? Yeah, he had a lot of weapons around him. But Big B, at the end of the day, this was a parting of ways. This wasn't a divorce. This was, as I've been joking, Will found someone with more money, and K-State found someone younger and more flexible. They found someone that fit what they wanted, and Will found the next step he wanted in his career. I kind of looked at this as seeing him have a fun time with the new other in Cancun. I don't care. I'm living my best life. I was happy for Will, and I think the coaches were too.
Yeah, I think it's indifferent. I think people are making too much of a deal about it, to be honest with you. And the reason being, I get it that he played here, and it's a fascinating story because he was at K-State. But if we're being honest, Will Howard wasn't going to lead K-State to a national championship. That wasn't going to happen. No. So since it wasn't, look, I guess I'm of the mindset, and I know fans get on me about this all the time, is that in this transfer portal, I root for my team. I don't root for players. I don't wish any ill will towards anybody going somewhere else unless you're going to badmouth everything, all your experience for no reason or something like that. I said, but I just root for my team. And anybody else, hey, thank you for your services, for what you brought to us, but I root for K-State. And so I'd be honest, I didn't have any thought about it. And I don't think the coaches did either. I'll be honest, Fitz. I think they thought, yeah, that's great. I'm glad he won. But we're trying to win next year. We got to go find our team and build our team for next year. It's great that he was able to do that. I would say that it doesn't even necessarily help K-State, because what are you going to say? Oh, well, you can go to K-State and then you can come to us and be a national champion. It doesn't work that way. So it doesn't do anything for anybody at the end of the day, other than Will Howard and K-State both made good decisions for their futures, and both of their futures should have been in, should I say, the forefront of all of that thinking when it was time to make decisions. Because K-State, I'd said it before the season was over, there was no way Will Howard was going to be the quarterback of K-State in 2024. No. That just was not going to happen. Everybody knew that, including Will Howard. And that's why he left. And now he found a place to go, and he won. It was never that he was a bad quarterback, because he wasn't. But he wasn't going to bring K-State a national title, and K-State needed to get to okay, look, we got a guy here that maybe he can. Because his ability, if he can get and tap into all of his potential, if we're all being honest, his potential is higher than Will Howard's. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. There's some people that have potential. Now, has he gotten there? No, absolutely not. He hasn't gotten there yet, but he does have the potential. And at some point, you got to start that. That clock has to start sooner than later, too, in football. You can't just keep waiting and waiting and waiting. The transfer portal, NIL, doesn't allow for that anymore. And K-State's not immune to that. Like we talk about the big school, or I say the big schools, the Power Fives that have a lot more money than K-State, they can't just hoard 4 and 5 stars anymore. Well, the ones that Kansas State gets, they can't hoard them either. They got to get them out on the field. So that's why the decisions were made. Everybody should be happy.
Avery Johnson wins a national championship at Ohio State. Big B. I think that's kind of my saying on this whole thing. Like, if you put Avery Johnson as a quarterback at Ohio State, I think the results are the exact same.
I don't know.
I don't know if he does either, because I think it took a culmination of everything Will Howard went through at Kansas State and then in the regular season at Ohio State. I think Will learned, some of the same things are happening.
Correct.
Again, whether it was ending the Oregon game, or how he played against Michigan, or other games where he wasn't quite as good. And I feel like he got tunnel vision. He, in a brilliant way, he just saw the end. It's all here. I think being at K-State carved him out to be well prepared to say, well, we got to do this the hard way, and we're going to run through the gauntlet. And he did. But I'm going to push back on a narrative, which I have supported in the past. And Big B just repeated it, that there's nothing to gain from Kansas State from Will Howard winning a national championship. But Gills and Jake, take this one, run with it. I got to take care of something because I've got a dog that desperately wants out of the Cats and Dogs studio. I mean, it's heaven in here. Why would he want out? But think about this. Does this enable the Kansas State football coaches, when going on the recruiting trail, to seriously look kids in the eye and say, we have players that can win national championships. We just need more of them like you? Because Will was improved, but the question becomes, was Will improved because he went to Ohio State and had more talent, which I agree, more talent made it easier on him. Or was Will improved simply because he was in his 5th year of playing college football, his 5th season, something most student athletes don't get to do until, post-pandemic? I just think it all culminated, and I think K-State actually has a sales pitch. Jake, you go first.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a little bit of both to it. I think there's a chance that there is a sales pitch, and you say, if we can get 22 guys that are of the caliber that Will Howard got to the point of, it becomes interesting. It's just Ohio State has so much more money to work with. They've got so much history there. Ohio State's been a recruiting hotbed. I mean, they can get 4 and 5 stars with ease. And you see K-State, us getting Lincoln Cure this year, it was like, that was Christmas Day for all of us. That was incredible. But Ohio State does that regularly. So I think if there is a sales pitch, it might not be the best one. There might be a slight one in terms of, we've got Will Howards in the past who were then national championship winning quarterbacks. But I don't think it's a 2 or 3 year sales pitch. I think this is something that you're going to have to find prolonged success. You're going to have to win constant Big 12 titles. You're going to have to really start putting your foot on the gas before that sales pitch gains all the merit that it can, I think.
Well, and before you go, Gills, I would just say this. If Ohio State had a bunch of Will Howards, people with his ability, they aren't even anywhere close to the college football playoff. Let's just be honest about that.
I don't disagree with that.
But if they have a bunch of Will Howards on their their football team, they're not anywhere close to the college football playoff because they lose 4 or 5 games. I said, but he being involved with all of those good players, that's what they needed. They've got a guy they had a guy that got transferred to Syracuse that's going to get drafted before Will Howard is going to get drafted. Think about that for a second. And they got rid of him because they needed somebody else in there that could just steady the boat. That was really good, don't get me wrong, but could steady the boat, that didn't have the peaks and valleys, that come with the position. But that is where the real difference is that Will's a good player, but he was surrounded with a team full of NFL guys. And it becomes easier. And you don't have to be the superstar when you have that. It's just facts.
Gills, I agree with Big B on everything he said. That doesn't alter my thought that they can use this as a recruiting pitch. It's a pitch. It's a sales pitch.
Is this the ghost of pitch?
Speaking of pitch, are you aware that you are currently pitch black on the screen?
What?
It's the ghost of pitch. No, you are pitch black.
Yes.
Hold on.
This is pretty hilarious.
I'm so funny because I got to take a screenshot of this to show you what I'm seeing. That's really weird.
This is hilarious.
Okay. Well, good enough. Okay, guys, go. I'm going to figure out my camera.
The only thing that I will say is this is something that Cole, you've mentioned recently here on GoPowercat is, Will Howard can kind of be the icing on the cake for maybe Chris Kleiman's recruiting pitch, because you look at all of the talent, that he directly has put into the NFL, 100% himself. Now, are they starters in the NFL? No, but, Big B, our man, Skylar Thompson, is probably going to be, the number 3 for Pittsburgh, and there's something to be said for that. He's not a superstar, but, he puts guys in the NFL, and Will Howard had most of his best success at Ohio State, but Chris Kleiman still played a part in that. So it's kind of just like maybe not the final pitch, but just the icing on the cake, the cherry on top to saying, hey, look what I can do with my quarterbacks.
I like it better when Fitz had the pitch black screen. Now,
am I back? Because I was never gone on my screen.
You're back. You are back.
Unfortunately, we got to look at you.
That's hilarious.
Weird. It's funny because we can see on the bottom everybody's like full backdrop, but Fitz's head was just like this. I could see dude just like staring at you, Fitz. He was definitely.
He was bugging the hell out of me. And I was like, before we started, like, you guys want to go outside? No, we're fine. As soon as the show started, hey, we got to go outside. But Mom also got home. Okay, next topic, guys. And Cole, I'm going to start with you. Women's basketball. Concern level after that loss to Colorado. They're going to play much more of the regular season without Aoka Lee. And I thought they were better equipped. They didn't appear to be so at Colorado, but also maybe Colorado was just a bad matchup without Lee. Your thoughts?
I need to see them have a game where they look dominant in order for me to feel better, because it's one game. And so it's just like the exact opposite of the men. You cannot read too much into one game, but there was enough signs there in that game for me to maybe just kind of pause and hit the wait and see button, because I was just like everybody else. I thought, okay, it's not going to be easy. You're losing an All-American and arguably the school's best player in the history of its program. One of the most dominant athletes to ever come through Kansas State. That is a fact. So you lose her, and you don't get her back until Jeff Mittie said on his radio show yesterday, or that might have been earlier tonight, actually, maybe 2 or 3 games left in the regular season. So they're going to have to play a majority of their games without her. Colorado was number 74 in the net rankings. They had only lost 1 game at home, and so I think that does factor into the situation. They're going to have a heck of a time the rest of the season. I still think there's a great chance for them to find a way to win this conference, but they play Iowa State on Thursday, a team who they have Audie Crooks, and right now that looks like a very tough matchup because she is the team's best player, and K-State does not have that force inside with Aoka, so they're going to have to kind of adjust the way that they play. And if you remember back to the last few seasons, it's taken them a minute immediately following her injuries in order for them to kind of hit the reset button, but they have. And so that's the encouraging sign, is they know how to kind of pick up the pieces. But if they want to win the Big 12, they got to do so rapidly. I want to caution fans and say that the expectation should still be to host an NCAA tournament 2 games. That should still be your expectation, is to be a top 4 seed, because even without her for this stretch, I really find it hard to believe that they're going to fall down from that ladder. I still think they're number 7 in the net, number 11 in the country. And so they're still on pace, as long as they don't kind of fall off a cliff here. The schedule gets tough, to be one of those top 4 seeds. But as far as like a 1 seed or even a 2 seed, that's probably out of the question. But I still think in women's basketball, you just want to host. And I think they can do that. And they get her back, they can still definitely make a run, if they're still in it at the end of the season, for a regular season crown and a tournament, Big 12 tournament crown.
Well said. Cole, Jake, I'm going to put you on the spot. Where does this women's basketball team register? How soundly does it register with the student body?
Yeah, I mean, we had even a short discussion about just viewership on this team, but I think there has been more of a push this year with the student body than there has been in the past. I've discussed it on the radio, but that's not to say that it's enough, even in my opinion. I think this team, even with Aoka Lee being hurt, I think this team is still has a pretty good argument for being the best team on campus all year. And it should draw fan support. It should draw student support. Now, I think Jeff Mittie coming out and saying we need more students, we need more fans here, I think that's a good outreach tactic. But, I hope that as this season goes, if we can find a way to win some games without Aoka, then I hope more students will continue to come.
Gills and Big B, does someone out there have maybe a voodoo doll in the shape of Kansas State athletics? You think you're going to have a Big 12 championship football season? No. You think you're going to have a really good basketball team? No. And just when you buy into the women, just when you decide we got they lose. Is this kind of a cruel joke, Gills?
For this year, maybe we drank too much purple Kool-Aid, maybe.
But it was delicious.
It was great. Yeah, Fitz has clearly had a lot of it, but you're right. You're not wrong. But overall, man, you can't dwell on just the negatives now. Our Big 12 football, championship a couple years ago, but I don't know, Fitz, like Dean Wade getting hurt. Maybe you're onto something in the NCAA tournament that year. So who knows?
Yep. I think there has been a hoax or hoax. That's pretty much the word that sums up K-State at sports this year, but a hex on K-State for a while. Big B, it's frustrating, man. I don't know if baseball is going to rock or not, but can K-State fans get some good? Get some more good. They need more good. We need more good because they're grumpy. Oh my goodness, are K-State fans grumpy?
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. You know, it's like you said, football thought we were going to be better than what we actually were. There were signs that maybe they weren't going to, but people overlooked that, and that's what happens when you're a fan. You overlook the signs that say, hey, maybe this is a little troublesome here. Same thing with basketball. You overlook the signs that say, hey, you know what? Maybe we're not going to be so good because of this, and this. But, you know, you overlook that, and that's kind of what fans do, though. And then when things don't go our way, we get upset. You know, we're grumpy, and I don't think that's ever going to change, to be honest with you. And the fact of the matter, I don't think it should change. I love being a fanatic of the teams that I root for. I think it's enjoyable. It brings me joy to be a fanatic. So if you're not upset, then are you really invested? That's all what I always say. If you're not mad, you know, and when your team loses, are you that invested? Because I live and die with every single possession. Gills can attest to that. We went to a basketball game when he was in town. I live and die on every possession. And we could be up 30 points. I don't care. I want to win the next possession. And I think fans that do that, they're in my wheelhouse. I love it. So I get K-State fans being grumpy. I understand why. I don't want them to change, though. I'll be honest. I really don't want them to change. I want them to be frustrated because you know what? Being frustrated, while maybe it doesn't bring change, it can. And at least it lets the people that are in charge know, hey, man, this ain't good enough. This is not good enough. And everybody that's upset, all fans, some of them understand either football, basketball, tennis, whatever the sport is. Everybody's just not a crazy K-State fan that doesn't understand what's going on. There's a lot of people that do. And so when they get upset, maybe you ought to listen because it's not just crazy people out here on the internet. They know what's going on. This isn't good enough. Why is the team playing like this? So I get it. I don't want it to change. I'll be quite frank with you. I really don't want it to change. But do we need some good? I guess to answer your actual question, yes, we need some good. We got to have some good. Keep your eye on the K-State women, though.
There we go.
I'll just say that from somebody that understands a little bit about basketball. You don't always play your best the first couple of games after your star goes out, but give it a minute. Yeah. Just give it a minute because they'll figure it out. The difference between last year's team and this year's team is way more athletic, way more. Just give it a second for them to figure some things out, and I think they will figure it out, and they'll go from there. Plus, Colorado's better than what people think they are, too.
Yep. And guys, I'm going to say this. This is going to be my second movie reference of the podcast, which has to be a GoPowercat record. My former roommate and one of my best friends religiously watches our shows, and he has a saying that we always seem to quote because it's our favorite movie, and it's that hope is a dangerous thing, and hope can drive a man insane. And that's from Shawshank Redemption, if you don't know where that's from. And I feel like that's kind of what K-State fans have. And as long as you have hope, hope is the best of things. And to quote Shawshank again, so like you can't change. Like you have to hope that this men's basketball team can turn things around and make a run in the Big 12 tournament. At the end of the season, they're playing meaningful basketball. You have to hope that the women can figure it out quickly and find a way to win a Big 12 championship for the first time in Jeff Mitty's career. You have to hope these things, because if you're not hoping for those things, then what are you doing, right? Like, are you a fan? And so that you have to hope for that. You have to hope for that.
Okay, let's stick with the reference. I think Kansas State sports this year has been Andy Dufresne crawling through a mile-long tunnel of crap. But, Jake, what is the next good story for K-State fans?
Well, I mean, looking ahead, if you want to look at baseball, I think baseball has a real chance to build off of what they did last year. And that's not to look past this women's team at all, because I think we've already hit that nail hard enough on the head. But this baseball team, it's going to have a chance to be able to have some success. I grew up with a buddy that pitches, so I get a lot of insight from him and talk to him about all sorts of stuff. But they recruited well. They lost quite a bit to the draft, but to lose 5 or 6 guys at the MLB draft is, that's something in itself.
Yeah.
So I think there should be some good, if not right now this year off the bat in baseball, it's building over there. Coach Hughes has it building, and it's moving in the right direction. I think beating Arkansas last year proved enough, but this thing's moving in the right direction. So that could maybe be the glimpse of good we need from K-State to turn this thing into the 2025-26 year. So hopefully we see some success there.
Gil, same question to you. What's the next big thing for K-State fans to hang their hat on?
Bold prediction. Kansas State basketball has life. They don't make the NCAA tournament, but they've got some life in the final couple of games of the year. Bold prediction. Not saying it'll happen, but Jerome Tang is trying to speak his whole whatever year that was at Baylor when they were 1-6 and 2-8, and they went on to make the Sweet 16. Not saying it'll happen, but bold prediction.
Interesting, because the name of this show is Reasons for K-State Basketball Hope, ? And you just gave it an answer to it. It took us 50 minutes to answer the damn question, but Ryan Gilbert delivered. A couple questions over here let's clean it up with as we finish up. Cole, 2 guys from Ohio State have come to K-State in the transfer portal. The Will Howard effect?
100%. 100%. I'm totally bought in on that, because they would not pick Kansas State without at least consulting the leader of the team. I would think, maybe I'm totally wrong on that. Big B, you might have better insight as a former player, but I would think that, hey, especially the offensive lineman who stayed with Ohio State, the other Fitz stayed with Ohio State throughout the entirety of the season. That surely was, hey, it was announced he was going into the portal. You would have to think that at some point he would have gone up to Will. Hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
And I would have to think that conversation, maybe not Gabe Powers, but with Will, I would assume that
probably told him Fitzes are welcome. That's probably
true.
exactly what happened. Keith asks about the two-tone old school look. He loves it. That's a big point of discussion among fans, whether they're K-State or not, with the lavender over purples, which are a throwback to the 70s. They are not permissible without permission by the NCAA. Don't ask me why. That's a typical NCAA thing. They're not jerseys that confuse who's who, unlike when you play gray on lavender. That seems like a more problem. And you can wear unmatching pants and shirts in football. So just go figure that out, NCAA. It doesn't make any sense. Guys, I appreciate it. Great show. What do we got over here? Question for Gilbert. Did you order Skylar Thompson Steeler jersey yet?
Nah, we've got the Mason Rudolph jersey. That's all we need.
Yeah. By the way, the great question. The only thing more irritating than Ryan Gilbert being a Steelers fan, sorry, Big B, is the fact that he loves Mason Rudolph more than any man should love another man in like a sports way. It's fine if you want to love a man the other way, but just from sports, him and Mason, Big B, can you explain it? Why does he love Mason Rudolph this much?
I don't know.
Big B, come on, you know why.
Nobody
You know why. Come on.
I don't know why.
7
I know what
last
you
year.
tell me,
Mason
but
Rudolph comes
that's
in
not
and
a
wins
real
3 games in
reason.
a row, leads them to the playoffs.
Okay. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
let you keep saying that.
Thank you for watching this show. I don't know how we just ended, but it wasn't great. But we did answer the question. Ryan Gilbert feels like this basketball team has more in the tank, and that tank will get tested on Wednesday night when Oklahoma State comes to Bramlage Coliseum. I'll be there. Jake will be there. Gills will be there. The other 2 guys won't because they don't live here. So that's fine. That's fine. But we hope to see you at Bramlage Coliseum. Thanks for watching The Insiders. We'll be back next week. Oh, by the way, Jake, what is the biggest bugaboo you have? What the problem you have with your sidekick Grant? He cusses a lot, I bet.
He snores when he sleeps, and we're roommates, and it's the worst thing in the world. Oh man, you could hear it outside the house probably if you were standing there.
Tyler would never.
Tyler did actually. He snored too when I was his roommate. So I just need to find new people to live with, I guess.
I know. I pity the people that have to share a room with a snorer. Gills, shut up. And we're done with this week's show.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.